The quantum sensors aboard the UES Pathfinder lit up like a Christmas tree as the massive vessel emerged from the darkness of deep space. Captain Sarah Chen felt her pulse quicken, but years of training kept her voice steady as she addressed the bridge crew. Humanity had spread throughout their solar system and established outposts in nearby star systems, but in all their exploration, they had never encountered another spacefaring civilization. Until now. The alien ship dwarfed the Pathfinder, its hull composed of what appeared to be living metal that shifted and rippled like mercury in zero gravity. Its design defied human engineering principles, all curved surfaces and organic shapes that seemed to adapt and change even as they watched. All stations, maintain current position, Chen ordered. Dr. Patel, what are our sensors telling us? The science officer's fingers danced across his holographic display. Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. Their power generation capabilities exceed anything we've ever seen. And there's something else. He paused, double-checking his readings. The ship appears to be consuming ambient radiation and matter. It's not just gathering it. It's metabolizing it somehow. Before Chen could respond, the alien vessel released a pulse of energy that washed over the Pathfinder like a wave. Every system on the ship flickered for a moment before stabilizing. Then a voice filled the bridge, not through their communication systems, but seemingly emanating from the metal of the ship itself. Greetings, carbon-based life forms. You have entered space claimed by the Dominion. We are the shepherds of order, the cultivators of progress. The voice was neither male nor female, its tone carrying an artificial perfection that made Chen's skin crawl. Your civilization has been monitored since you first began broadcasting electromagnetic signals into space. You have now reached a sufficient level of development to be of use. Lieutenant Maria Santos, the ship's tactical officer, whispered, Captain, they're scanning us. These aren't standard sensor suites. They're going through our ship like it's transparent. Chen stood from her command chair, squaring her shoulders. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Pathfinder. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations. Diplomatic relations are unnecessary, the voice interrupted. Your species has demonstrated remarkable adaptive capabilities and resource efficiency despite your technological limitations. You will be integrated into the Dominion. Resistance would be wasteful. The captain's mind raced. Something about the way they spoke, the clinical detachment in their tone. And what exactly does integration entail? Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be harvested and added to our own. Your populations will be optimized for maximum utility. The process is efficient. Only 40% mortality rate on average. Horror spread through the bridge crew, but Chen maintained her composure. And if we decline this generous offer? Decline? You misunderstand. This is not an offer. This is notification of your new status. The process begins now. The alien ship's surface began to shift more rapidly, sections of it extending toward the Pathfinder like liquid tentacles. Chen had seen enough. All hands, battle stations. Santos, fire up the prototype drive. Patel, dump all sensor data to the quantum beacon. If this goes sideways, Earth needs to know what we're dealing with. The crew jumped into action as the metallic tendrils approached. The Pathfinder's conventional weapons would likely be useless against such advanced technology, but Chen had one card left to play. The experimental quantum displacement drive was unstable and had never been tested in combat conditions, but right now, unstable was exactly what they needed. Drive spooling up, Santos reported. 30 seconds to critical mass. The alien tendrils were meters away now. The voice spoke again. Your primitive defensive measures are noted. They will be analyzed and added to our database before being discarded as inefficient. Chen allowed herself a small smile. You know what humanity's greatest inefficiency is. We're really bad at doing what we're told. She turned to Santos. Dump the drive containment. Right. Now. The quantum displacement drive detonated in a controlled overload, creating a localized rupture in space-time. The Pathfinder was designed to ride the shockwave of such an event. The alien vessel, despite its superior technology, was not prepared for such an inefficient and reckless maneuver. As reality itself buckled around them, Chen caught a glimpse of the Dominion ship being torn apart by forces it couldn't adapt to quickly enough. The Pathfinder shot through space like a bullet from a gun, its structural integrity field straining to keep the ship in one piece. When they finally dropped back into normal space, several light-years away, Chen immediately began issuing orders. Paddle, confirm the beacon transmitted successfully. Santos, plot the fastest course back to Earth. We need to warn them. She paused, looking at the damage reports flooding her display. The Dominion thought they found another species to harvest. Instead, they just picked a fight with the most stubborn, innovative, and downright contrary species this galaxy has ever seen. And humanity doesn't take kindly to bullies. As the Pathfinder limped toward home, Chen knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion would be back, probably with more ships and a grudge. But they'd learn what countless others throughout human history had discovered the hard way. When you back humans into a corner, you don't find prey. You find predators who just remembered their teeth. The United Earth Defense Council chamber buzzed with tension as Captain Chen finished presenting the Pathfinder sensor data. The massive hologram above the council table showed the Dominion vessel's impossible geometry, its living metal structure defying conventional physics. The room fell silent as the recording ended with the quantum drive detonation. Admiral Hassan stood first, his weathered face grave. A civilization that views less advanced species as resources to be harvested. And now they know where we are. He turned to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's leading genotechnologist. Doctor, what are we looking at in terms of technological gap? Rodriguez manipulated the hologram, highlighting the Dominion ship's adaptive hull. Their technology operates on principles we barely understand. It's not just advanced, it's evolved. Their ships are almost alive, able to repair and adapt in real time. She paused, then smiled unexpectedly. But that's also their weakness. The council members stirred. Explain, Admiral Hassan urged. Their technology is too perfect, too optimized. Like any over-specialized organism, they've lost adaptability. Look at how they responded to the quantum drive detonation. Their ship tried to adapt, but it couldn't do it fast enough. They've evolved for efficiency, not chaos. Captain Chen leaned forward. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's chaos. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of Earth's Quantum Physics Division, joined in. The Pathfinder's sensor data shows something else interesting. Their systems operate on predictable patterns, incredibly complex ones, but patterns nonetheless. They've optimized themselves into a corner. Admiral Hassan's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting we could exploit these patterns? Better, Tanaka replied. I'm suggesting we could disrupt them entirely. Their technology depends on order and efficiency, so let's give them disorder. Let's give them humanity. The next 3 months transformed Earth and its colonies. Traditional military doctrine was abandoned in favor of what became known as the Chaos Protocol. Every ship in Earth's fleet was modified with what engineers called stupidity engines, systems deliberately designed to be unpredictable and inefficient. Deep beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Rodriguez led the development of quantum randomizers, devices that generated truly random signals to confuse Dominion sensors. They expect logic, she explained to her team. They expect optimization. Let's show them what happens when you throw human creativity into the mix. In the asteroid belt, mining operations transformed into manufacturing centers for what the engineers dubbed Murphy's Law weapons, systems that appeared to malfunction but actually operated in deliberately chaotic ways. Fusion drives were modified to leak specific radiation patterns that would trigger the Dominion's adaptive systems, forcing them to waste energy on unnecessary transformations. The lunar shipyards worked around the clock, but not building traditional warships. Instead, they constructed swarms of small, seemingly erratic craft that mimic the flight patterns of Earth insects. The Dominion thinks in straight lines and efficient curves, Captain Chen explained during a tactical briefing. Let's show them how a mosquito fights. But humanity's greatest weapon was its diversity of thought. The Defense Council brought in not just military strategists, but artists, game theorists, and even children to design battle plans. The Dominion expects us to think like them, Admiral Hassan told his officers. They expect logic, optimization, and efficiency. Instead, we'll give them jazz. When the Dominion's invasion fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, they encountered something their vast database had never recorded, a defense that made no sense. Ships performing maneuvers that wasted fuel but created unpredictable attack vectors. Weapons that seemed to malfunction, but actually struck from impossible angles. Communication systems that broadcast everything from death metal to cat videos alongside military orders. The first battle took place near Neptune. A Dominion dreadnought, its living metal hull gleaming in the dim sunlight, approached a seemingly chaotic cluster of human ships. The alien vessel attempted to analyze the humans' flight patterns, trying to predict their strategy. But there was no strategy to predict. Human ships darted about like angry wasps, their drives spewing apparently random radiation signatures that forced the Dominion ship to constantly reconfigure its defenses. When it adapted to energy weapons, the humans switched to kinetic projectiles. When it optimized for kinetic defense, they switched to electronic warfare. Each time the mighty vessel evolved to counter one threat, the humans had already moved on to something completely different. The Dominion commanders, their minds as structured as their technology, couldn't comprehend the humans' apparent lack of logic. They didn't realize that this chaos was the logic, a perfect expression of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to be consistently inconsistent. As the battle raged, Admiral Hassan received a message from one of the particle physics teams back on Earth. They'd been studying the Dominion's ship patterns and found something remarkable. The aliens' adaptive technology had a rhythm, like a heartbeat, and like any rhythm, it could be disrupted by introducing the right kind of arrhythmic noise. Think of it like giving their ships hiccups, the physicist explained. Their technology is so focused on finding optimal solutions that when faced with deliberately suboptimal attacks, they enter a feedback loop trying to optimize their response. Hassan smiled. The Dominion had made a crucial mistake. They had looked at humanity's inefficient nature as a weakness to be corrected. They never considered that these inefficiencies, this wonderful, chaotic, creative messiness, was actually our greatest strength. The battle for Neptune would become known as the Symphony of Chaos, the first movement in humanity's resistance against the Dominion. And it was just the beginning. Because while the Dominion ships could adapt to any logical attack, they were about to learn that humans had 10,000 years of practice at being perfectly, wonderfully illogical. The UES Dragonfly was barely larger than a cargo shuttle, its hull painted with a coating that absorbed both light and sensor waves. Captain Maya Patel watched through its quantum glass viewport as 3 massive Dominion harvesters moved through the Kuiper Belt, their living metal forms distorting space around them. To their hyper-evolved sensors, the Dragonfly might as well have been a speck of cosmic dust. Status on the virus, Maya whispered, though she knew the Dominion couldn't hear them. Old habits died hard. Her tech specialist, Raj Kumar, monitored streams of data on his neural interface. The quantum randomizer is functioning perfectly, Captain. As far as their systems are concerned, we're just background radiation. He grinned. Turns out being unpredictable has its advantages. Their mission was part of Operation Shadow Strike, humanity's answer to the Dominion's overwhelming technological superiority. While the aliens expected a desperate defense of Earth, humanity instead launched hundreds of tiny ships into the darkness of space, each carrying a payload that Dr. Rodriguez had dubbed technological hiccups. Maya checked the mission clock. Initiate deployment sequence. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We just need to make them doubt everything they think they know. The Dragonfly's cargo bay opened silently, releasing clouds of what appeared to be ordinary metallic dust. But each microscopic particle contained a quantum-entangled core programmed with one simple task: the unpredictable. As the dust drifted toward the Dominion ships, it began its work. At first, the changes were subtle. The Harvester's living metal hulls began to shift more frequently, responding to phantom threats. Their sensor arrays twisted and reformed, trying to track energy signatures that appeared and disappeared randomly. The mighty vessels started to behave like nervous animals, jumping at shadows. First stage complete, Raj reported. Their adaptive systems are starting to overcompensate. They're burning through power trying to optimize for threats that don't exist. Maya nodded. Begin stage 2. Across the Kuiper Belt, other stealth ships like the Dragonfly were executing similar maneuvers. Each deployed different variants of the quantum dust, ensuring that the Dominion couldn't adapt to any single pattern. Some particles mimicked radiation signatures of extinct stars. Others generated microscopic temporal distortions that lasted less than a nanosecond. A few simply reflected signals in mathematically impossible ways. The Dominion ships' responses grew more erratic. Their living metal hulls rippled continuously now, like the surface of a pond in a rainstorm. Energy readings showed their power systems cycling rapidly as they tried to maintain optimal configurations against an ever-changing threat landscape. They're transmitting to their command network, Raj announced, trying to make sense of what's happening. But watch this. He activated the Dragonfly's secondary system, and suddenly the space around them filled with quantum echoes, copies of old transmissions from Earth. Television shows, radio broadcasts, social media feeds, all carefully selected for maximum confusion. The Dominion's communication network, designed for perfect efficiency, found itself trying to process cat videos alongside emergency alerts, love songs mixed with military orders, and philosophical debates spliced with cooking shows. Their pattern recognition systems, faced with humanity's century of digital chaos, began to show signs of cognitive overload. Report from the Mosquito Squadron, Maya's communication officer announced. The Harbinger ships near Saturn are showing similar symptoms. The virus is spreading through their network exactly as planned. Maya allowed herself a small smile. The Dominion had expected humans to think like them, to seek optimal solutions and efficient strategies. Instead, humanity had weaponized its own chaos. They fought like their ancestors on the African savanna, not with superior strength, but with endurance and cunning, wearing down larger predators until they simply couldn't continue. A sudden burst of energy caught their attention. One of the Harvester ships had begun to rotate, its hull flowing like quicksilver as it tried to adapt to multiple contradictory threats simultaneously. The living metal, unable to settle on a single optimal configuration, started to lose cohesion. All ships, maintain distance, Maya ordered through the secure quantum network. Let them do the work for us. The Dominion vessels, their adaptive technology pushed beyond its limits, started to exhibit what Dr. Rodriguez had termed technological panic attacks. Their perfectly evolved systems, faced with situations they couldn't optimize, began to malfunction in increasingly spectacular ways. The living metal hulls shifted between configurations rapidly, unable to determine the correct response to threats that defied their fundamental understanding of how the universe should work. "Captain," Raj called out, excitement in his voice. "We're detecting energy surges in their core systems. The cognitive load is forcing them to shut down non-essential functions. They're going into survival mode." Maya watched as the mighty Harvester ships, each capable of destroying an entire planet, began to drift. Their hulls still rippled, but the movements were weaker now, like the twitches of an exhausted animal. The Dominion's greatest strength, their relentless drive for perfection, had become their critical weakness. "Send word to command," Maya ordered. "Operation Shadow Strike is working. The Dominion isn't just fighting our technology. They're fighting every cat video, every pop song, every bad joke, and every random thought humanity has ever had. And they're losing. As the Dragonfleet and its sister ships maintained their silent watch, Maya reflected on the irony. The Dominion had called humans inefficient, had planned to optimize their species. They never understood that humanity's messy, chaotic nature wasn't a flaw to be corrected. It was the very thing that made them unique in a galaxy obsessed with perfection. Within the crystalline core of the Dominion command ship Eternal Optimization, Grand Overseer X-731 experienced what humans would call confusion. The emotion was alien to its kind, and therefore deeply disturbing. The holographic displays surrounding its consciousness node showed the status of the Harvester fleet, and the data made no sense. Explain, it commanded its subordinate analyzers, how a species using primitive quantum technology has reduced 30% of our adaptive vessels to minimal functionality. The analysis cluster hummed as it processed the data. The humans are not following any known combat protocols, the primary analyzer reported. Their attacks appear random, inefficient, and wasteful of resources. Yet, it hesitated, something unprecedented in Dominion history. Yet they are succeeding. Through the quantum network, X-731 accessed the logs from the disabled harvesters. The scenes it witnessed defied the Dominion's fundamental understanding of warfare. Tiny human vessels appearing from nowhere, releasing clouds of seemingly harmless particles. Transmissions filled with meaningless data, entertainment, personal communications, deliberately contradictory information. Their ships moved in patterns that wasted energy yet somehow made them nearly impossible to target. "Show me their command structure," X-731 ordered. The display shifted, attempting to map the hierarchy of human military operations. But instead of the clear, efficient chain of command the Dominion expected, it showed a web of interactions that seemed to change constantly. Decisions emerged from chaos. Strategies appeared to form spontaneously from countless small interactions. A message arrived from the Dominion's Central Intelligence Cluster. Analysis of human historical data reveals a disturbing pattern. This species has repeatedly faced technologically superior opponents throughout their planetary history. In 73.4% of cases, they prevailed through what they term asymmetric warfare, combat techniques that ignore conventional military logic. X-731 processed this information, its crystalline structure vibrating with what might have been concern. "Show me their adaptation rate." The displays filled with graphs and charts tracking human technological progress. The curve was not smooth and efficient like Dominion advancement. Instead, it jumped erratically, often making greatest progress during periods of maximum stress or conflict. They didn't evolve in a straight line. They exploded in all directions simultaneously, keeping what worked and discarding what didn't with little regard for theoretical optimization. Their neural structures, another analyzer reported, show unusual patterns. When faced with overwhelming opposition, their stress responses don't inhibit creative thinking. They enhance it. They become more innovative under pressure, not less. Our attempts to optimize them are actually accelerating their development. Through the quantum network, X-731 received reports from across the solar system. Human ships were using the very debris of destroyed Dominion vessels as weapons, their seemingly random movements forming patterns too chaotic for predictive algorithms to track. Their quantum virus had infected the living metal of Dominion ships, causing them to interpret every dust particle as a potential threat. "They are not fighting us," X-731 realized with growing alarm. "They are making us fight ourselves." The command ship shuddered as another wave of quantum interference washed over it. The living metal hull, designed to find optimal configurations for any situation, tried to adapt to thousands of contradictory threats simultaneously. Warning signals flashed across X-731's consciousness as ships throughout the fleet reported similar symptoms. Their inefficiency, the primary analyzer stated, its tone carrying unprecedented uncertainty, appears to be an evolutionary advantage. They do not seek perfect solutions because they have learned that perfect solutions become predictable. They deliberately maintain multiple approaches to any problem, even suboptimal ones, because it makes them adaptable. A new transmission caught X-731's attention. A human vessel, far smaller than the command ship, had appeared nearby. Instead of attacking, it was broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. The message contained only two things: a human cultural artifact called a meme, showing a small animal surviving seemingly unsurvivable situations, and a text: "Honey Badger doesn't care about optimization." As X-731 attempted to process this seemingly irrelevant data, its ship's adaptive systems went into cascade failure trying to find the hidden meaning in the transmission. Throughout the fleet, other vessels experienced similar reactions as human ships bombarded them with what appeared to be completely random cultural artifacts, each requiring precious processing power to analyze for potential threats. "We have made a critical error," X-731 announced to the Dominion network. "We assumed their lack of optimization was a weakness to be corrected. Instead, it is the source of their strength. They are not merely adapting to face us. They are forcing us to adapt to them, and our pursuit of perfect adaptation has become a vulnerability." The realization spread through the Dominion fleet like a shock wave. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of optimal efficiency, of finding and implementing perfect solutions. But the humans had demonstrated something unprecedented: the power of deliberate imperfection, of maintaining chaos as a strategic reserve. As more Dominion ships succumbed to the strain of trying to optimize responses to human unpredictability, X-731 reached a conclusion that would shake the foundations of Dominion society. In a universe of infinite variables, the pursuit of perfection itself was a fatal flaw. The humans, with their messy, inefficient, gloriously chaotic approach to existence, had discovered a truth that the Dominion's relentless optimization had blinded them to. True adaptability requires embracing imperfection. 6 months after what became known as the Optimization War, representatives from Earth sat across from the Dominion delegation in the newly constructed Unity station orbiting Mars. The station's design itself reflected the changed reality. Its architecture was a blend of human creativity and Dominion living metal, creating spaces that were both beautiful and unpredictable. Admiral Hassan studied the Dominion representatives with interest. Their crystalline forms had changed, showing subtle imperfections that would have been unthinkable before the war. Grand Overseer X-731, now designated as Chief of Mutual Understanding, initiated the dialogue. "We have spent the equivalent of 3 of your Earth months analyzing our defeat," X-731 began, its voice carrying new harmonics of uncertainty that made it sound almost organic. "Our conclusions have transformed our civilization's fundamental principles." Dr. Rodriguez, who had led the development of the quantum virus, leaned forward. "And what conclusions are those?" "That perfection," X-731 responded, "is the enemy of survival. Your species showed us that maintaining deliberate inefficiencies, what you call backup plans, is essential for long-term adaptation. The universe is too complex for any single optimal solution." The station's holoprojectors activated, showing the changes spreading through Dominion space. Their once uniform ships now displayed variety in design and function. Their living metal technology had been modified to incorporate randomness generators, making them more resilient against future attacks, but also fundamentally changing Dominion society. The concept of good enough was foreign to us. X-731 continued. "We saw it as a failure to achieve optimization. Now we understand it is a form of optimization itself, the optimization of adaptability over perfection." Captain Chen, who had survived that first contact with the Dominion, gestured to the screens showing trade routes already forming between human and Dominion space. "And what of the other species you've harvested over the millennia?" "We are undoing what we can," X-731 replied. its crystalline structure shifting in what humans had learned to recognize as discomfort. Those we stored in stasis are being revived. Those we modified are being offered restoration. But more importantly, we are sharing what we learned from you. The strength found in diversity, in imperfection, in the courage to try illogical solutions. The meeting continued with discussions of technology sharing, cultural exchange programs, and the establishment of what would become known as the Galactic Diversity Initiative. But the most profound changes were already visible in the way the Dominion representatives behaved. They asked questions instead of making statements, considered multiple viewpoints, and even occasionally made what humans would call jokes. As the formal proceedings concluded, Dr. Tanaka shared some data that brought the transformation into sharp focus. "We've been monitoring quantum fluctuations in Dominion space," he explained. "Their civilization's energy patterns used to show perfect synchronization. Now they exhibit controlled chaos, similar to the brain waves of a dreaming human. They're not just accepting imperfection, they're embracing it." Later, in a more informal gathering in the station's observation lounge, humans and Dominion representatives watched Earth rise over the Martian horizon. Captain Maya Patel, whose dragonfly had helped turn the tide of war, stood next to a junior Dominion analyzer who had asked to be called Jazz after becoming fascinated with human music. "Your species," Jazz observed, its crystalline form shifting in time with the background music, "achieves harmony through discord, strength through vulnerability, and wisdom through acknowledging ignorance. These paradoxes were incomprehensible to us. Now they are becoming our teachers." Maya smiled, watching a group of human children who had been brought to the station introducing the Dominion education cluster to the concept of finger painting. The living metal walls around them had begun to shift color in response to the children's art, creating an ever-changing canvas that would have been considered a waste of resources in the old Dominion. "Perhaps," she suggested, "that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not our technology or our military strategies, but our comfort with being uncomfortably human." The news spread across Earth's networks and through the Dominion's quantum consciousness. Humanity had not just defeated a superior foe, they had transformed them. The species that the Dominion had dismissed as inefficient and primitive had shown them a new way of existing, one that embraced the messy, chaotic, beautiful imperfection of life itself. In the decades that followed, the galaxy changed in ways no optimization algorithm could have predicted. The Dominion's forced harvesting of species was replaced by a voluntary exchange of ideas and cultures. Their living metal technology, combined with human creativity, led to innovations that neither civilization could have achieved alone. And in the great void between the stars, ships of both human and Dominion design carried a message to the unknown civilizations waiting to be discovered. Perfection is not the goal. The goal is to be perfectly imperfect, to maintain the beautiful chaos that makes life worth living, and to remember that sometimes the most efficient solution is to have no solution at all. The greatest irony, as noted in the archives of Unity Station, was that in trying to optimize humanity, the Dominion had accidentally optimized themselves, not through achieving perfection, but by learning to let it go.